In 1793, yellow fever descended upon Philadelphia, and President George Washington fled the disease-ridden capital with the rest of the new national government in tow. About 10% of the city's population died. The following year, an outbreak of the same pestilence hit New Haven, followed by reports of several hundred fever deaths in Baltimore. New York City's port authorities blockaded ships of suspect origin, and citizen patrols sought to root out refugees, but, in the fall of 1798, the unmistakable signatures of the disease appeared upon the bodies of dead dockworkers. 35,000 of the city's more than 60,000 residents escaped to the countryside. Of those who remained, almost 5% would die of the fever. Full-fledged epidemic had hit the young republic, and New York was the epicenter. Like the novel coronavirus, yellow fever was zoonotic. The virus had originated in primates in West Africa, the RNA of which found vector to human hosts through the bite of Aedes aegypti, an African mosquito. The scourge most likely arrived on the American continent by means of the slave trade. Medical doctors in the Federalist period had no inkling of the patterns and determinants that compose the science of epidemiology. The leading physician of the day, Benjamin Rush, conjectured that the disease materialized from the miasmatic vapor of certain rotten vegetables. The newspaper publisher and lexicographer Noah Webster averred that the pestilence emanated from the ash of volcanic eruption in Sicily. Venesection, popular clinical method to release excitements of the blood, did not work. Neither did blisters, sudorifics, nor dousing patients with buckets of cold water, all of which were, at the time, standard practice. A young New York doctor named Elihu Smith kept diary between 1795 and 1798. When the yellow fever struck, Smith was 27 years old, Yale graduate, and co-editor of the first American medical journal. He went straight to the front lines, visiting the sick in their homes and making rounds at the city's recently founded fever hospital, Bellevue. The first symptom of the fever was splitting headache. Next, the patient turned yellow, began bleeding from the nose and gums, and had the black vomit, which came out of every orifice of the body. The afflicted often lost their minds, and screamed and raved their way to an early death. When he discovered that fellow doctor, Joseph Scandella, had caught the disease, Smith brought him to his own home, on Pine Street, in Lower Manhattan, where Scandella soon died. Like those of scores of other doctors who fought the epidemic, the names Scandella and Smith would surely have been lost to posterity, except that Smith was the best friend of young magazine writer named Charles Brockden Brown. Smith's literary contacts in Philadelphia had helped shepherd Brown's first book into print, and the two had published poetical correspondence in what was then Popular magazine, the Gazette of the United States. When the yellow fever epidemic hit New York, Brown, who visited patients and hospitals alongside Smith, also caught the disease. He survived, but he awoke from days of delirium to discover that Smith, after caring for Scandella, had also died. Stricken with grief, Brown fell into writerly frenzy, and, from 1798 to 1800, million words poured from his pen, resulting in 7 complete novels and the birth of genre known as the American Gothic, dark tales of terror in which the monstrous and the irrational hold sway. First came Wieland, the plot of which centers around malicious billiquist, named Carwin, who can throw his voice across vast distances. By means of his disembodied voice, Carwin induces fanatical preacher, the eponymous Wieland, to become raving maniac who murders his own children. Needless to say, the novel is deeply disturbing. Soon after Wieland, Brown published Ormond, or The Secret Witness. The personal history of the title character includes the following details: that he had executed secret and diplomatic functions at Constantinople and Berlin, that, in the latter city he had met with schemers and reasoners who aimed at the new modeling of the world, and the subversion of all that has hitherto been conceived elementary and fundamental. This was instantly recognizable code to Federalist readers. Ormond, mysterious and wealthy young man of boundless intellect, was clearly member of the Illuminati, secret society that enthralled the urban bourgeoisie of the young republic, terrified conservative preachers and their flocks, and resurfaced 200 years later with an abundance of Facebook pages, TikToks, YouTube videos, Instagram hashtags, and superclass membership that not only includes the usual assortment of Rockefellers and Rothschilds but also Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson, Rihanna, Madonna, Beyoncé, and Queen Elizabeth II.